under the Trump administration, the DOJ and the FBI will once again become the premier crime-fighting agencies on the face.
Have you ever wondered behind the walls of power in Washington what dark secrets are lurking? At 5:12 a.m. under the cold rain, FBI and DEA agents smashed through the door of a high-ranking official's house, Secretary of the Navy Jackson Reed. They found 20 kilos of prohibited goods, $40 million in cash, and encoded documents leading to a massive corruption network. But Reed had disappeared, leaving behind the mysterious death of a young pregnant woman. This is not just a scandal, but a national security nightmare. Follow along to discover the full truth behind the man who once controlled the ocean, now a fugitive. Are you ready? We are so proud of all of you. Under the Trump administration, the Department of Justice and the FBI will once again become the world's premier crime-fighting agencies. 5:12 a.m. in Washington, D.C., the home of a cabinet official raided, 20 kilograms of prohibited goods, $40 million in cash, a grave incident to silence. The Secretary of the Navy vanished into the darkness. Something far worse was hiding behind those walls. This is where America woke up. Let me show you. Because the level of corruption we uncovered afterward turned out to be them truly doing terrible things. Thought he was a terrible person. Did terrible things. 5:12 a.m. in Washington. Rain clung to the pavement and the neighborhood slept. Then headlights appeared. Silent and deliberate. An unmarked SUV slid to a stop in front of the Secretary of the Navy's home. Agents moved fast and focused. No knock, no warning. A breaching tool slammed into the entrance. One strike, two strikes. On the third impact, the oak door collapsed. Wood splintered across the foyer. FBI and DEA agents poured inside. Flashlights sliced through the darkness. Every room was searched, drawers ripped open. Behind the quiet furniture and family photos, nothing was peaceful. Agents found 20 kilograms of prohibited goods wrapped in plastic and $40 million in cash sealed inside black duffel bags. Inside a locked cabinet were shipping documents bearing secret codes. But the most shocking discovery was the emptiness. Secretary of the Navy Jackson Reed had vanished. No note, no phone, no trace. Just one powerful man gone into the night. If you want the full truth behind what happened in Washington, hit like so this story reaches more people. The investigation did not start with the prohibited goods or the money. It began 6 months earlier with a missing woman, Sophia Hayes, 27 years old, bright, ambitious, and suddenly gone. Friends reported her disappearance after she stopped answering messages. At first, it looked like a simple missing person case. Detectives reviewed security footage from restaurants and luxury hotels in Washington. Again and again, the same pattern appeared. Sophia was never alone. She was always with Secretary of the Navy Jackson Reed. They walked side by side, ate together, entered elevators together. Messages recovered from Sophia's phone showed she was worried. She had news to tell someone close. Then her phone went silent. 2 days after the report, a body was found on a vacant lot at the edge of the city. Sophia Hayes, 2 months pregnant. The body of 27-year-old Sophia Hayes, missing for 6 months, was discovered this morning on an empty lot on the eastern edge of Washington. There were no signs of robbery. Nothing was missing except time. The conclusion was brutal and direct. Someone wanted her silenced. A missing woman had become a grave case, and every trail pointed to the same powerful man who had now vanished. Sophia Hayes had been alive, hopeful, and 2 months pregnant before someone decided silence was safer than her voice. If you believe she deserves justice, type justice for Sophia, and the chase begins. Shock at federal headquarters was immediate. A missing official was serious. A lost woman was worse, but the Secretary of the Navy disappearing after a raid was beyond anything they had ever seen. No one could pretend anymore. A man with access to military routes and port schedules had vanished. Every agency went on full alert. Teams fanned out across Washington, Maryland, and Virginia. Airports, ports, hotels, private marinas. The order was short and cold: find Jackson Reed. What investigators uncovered next explained everything. For 5 years, Reed had lived a second life. Behind the polished speeches and ribbon cuttings, he quietly ran maritime routes for an organization using his rank to move cargo unnoticed. His network was built from men with nothing left to lose: illegal entrants, escaped convicts, violent offenders who owed him loyalty. They handled packages at night and smiled in daylight. Nothing about them suggested an organization. That was the point. Reed had used authority to open doors no one else could. Customs checks vanished. Inspectors were reassigned. Records were erased. The ocean became an invisible highway. When agents seized his home, they found maps of ports from Mexico to Texas marked with red circles. Houston stood out. It was the only location with a handwritten note, "Last option." Within hours, surveillance teams detected movement. Credit cards used near the coast. A rental vehicle heading south. Cameras along the interstate caught a lone figure driving fast. Face blurred, but the posture unmistakable. Reed was on the run. The chase shifted to the water. Coast Guard cutters, border patrol boats, helicopter overhead. At night, the Gulf looked empty. Only black waves and salt wind. But through night vision, there was motion. A speedboat slicing through the darkness. Engines roared. The silence shattered. Warning shots fired. The boat swerved. Waves crashed over the bow. Voices blared through loudspeakers. "Stop the engine! Hands up!" The man at the wheel did not stop. He pushed forward, desperate eyes locked on the open horizon. He knew what waited on shore: prison headlines, disgrace. The water was his only hope. Then the boat lurched. A cable snagged the propeller. The engine died. Agents boarded in seconds. They found him slumped on the deck, gasping, soaked in salt water. No more fight left. He slowly raised his hands, defeated by the very ocean he once commanded. Jackson Reed was in handcuffs. A high-ranking official, once untouchable, now a fugitive caught in the dark. Radios crackled. One message echoed across Washington: subject in custody. But as agents would soon discover, Reed was only the beginning. The capture of Jackson Reed did not end the investigation. In many ways, it was only the opening move. The moment he was secured on the deck of the patrol boat, FBI analysts began tearing through every device seized from his home computers: encrypted drives, burner phones, handwritten notes. What they found was not just evidence. It was a map. Reed's life had been split in two. On the surface, he was a respected leader entrusted with fleets and strategy. Beneath, he had built a criminal network stretching across 3 states, and that network was still alive, still moving, still dangerous. At 2:14 a.m., the command center in Washington lit up with red markers. New teams were formed. Names flashed on screens: addresses, warehouses, storage units rented under fake identities, small offices that looked ordinary from the street but held a different reality inside. Tons of documents, satellite phones, coordinated shipping schedules. The order came down, hit them all. No delays. Before dawn, Washington, Maryland, and Virginia witnessed a coordinated operation unlike anything the region had seen in years. Convoys rolled through empty streets. Federal agents moved with speed and purpose. Every location had to be secured at once. If even one suspect escaped, the entire structure could collapse. The first strike hit a commercial building disguised as a logistics company. From the outside, it looked abandoned. Metal shutters faded, sign no activity. But when the door was breached, the truth emerged. Inside were racks of boxes labeled with shipping numbers. Most contained paper. Some contained black plastic-wrapped bricks identical to those found in Reed's home. Several men were arrested without resistance. They knew the game was over. The second location was harder. A perfect suburban house with a manicured lawn, kids' toys outside, porch light glowing. Neighbors thought it belonged to a family. Instead, the basement held servers and surveillance screens. When agents entered, 2 men bolted for a hidden exit. They didn't get far. Both were tackled in the backyard, breathless, hands up. More raids followed. a locked warehouse near the interstate, a self-storage facility, a lakeside cabin used for nighttime meetings. Each site added another piece to the puzzle. What shocked investigators most were the faces. Some suspects were expected hardened men with criminal records, scars, anger in their eyes, but others were different. Men in suits, employees wearing government badges, people who had passed background checks and walked among colleagues unnoticed. They had all worked for Reed. They trusted him, they followed orders, and now one by one they were in handcuffs. By noon, dozens of arrests had been made. Trucks were seized, documents scanned, money counted. But even as agents secured the evidence, a single question hung over the operation. How far had this network reached? The answer would come soon, and it would be worse than anyone expected. By midday, the situation had transformed from a criminal investigation into a national security crisis. The arrest of the Secretary of the Navy running secret prohibited goods routes was not just shocking. It revealed a structure more complex than expected. Jackson Reed had not acted alone. He had built a system that did not depend on street-level behavior, but on access, authority, and paperwork. The deeper investigators went, the more they understood how far his influence reached inside government walls. Reed's life had existed in two parallel worlds without ever colliding. In one world, he wore medals, attended ceremonies, gave speeches, and shook hands with military leaders. What do you think about a high-ranking official like Jackson Reed being able to hide a criminal network and the serious incident with Sophia Hayes? In the other world, he controlled men with nothing left to lose. Smugglers from foreign courts, escaped prisoners, and violent operatives trained to follow orders. What shocked investigators was not just the kind of people he commanded, but the fact that many working for him were not criminals at all. They were fully employed, educated, trusted individuals inside federal offices. They held jobs at customs checkpoints, procurement desks, shipping inspections, and port administration. They had passed security clearances. They carried government ID badges, office keys, and family photos on their desks. By day, they acted like ordinary employees. But at night, their phones lit up with instructions from a different world. The network itself was built on something far more subtle and dangerous than guns, the invisible power of paperwork. Everything illegal was disguised inside legal processes. Goods did not move through back roads or hidden tunnels. They moved in official containers stamped by official hands, protected by official schedules. Customs forms were filed correctly. Permits looked valid. Port access records were signed by the right names. If an inspector opened a file, the details appeared routine. There was no need to break locks or bribe guards when the system could be used from the inside. One signature could replace an entire truckload of armed escorts. For years, shipments passed through American waters behind a facade of legitimacy, entering ports at night and exiting in daylight. By the time anyone asked, they were already gone. After the raids, a joint command center was activated. Large screens displayed maps of Washington, Maryland, Virginia, and the Gulf Coast. Red lines connected ports, warehouses, storage units, and residential addresses. Every line pointed back to Reed. His control reached deeper than simple influence. He had created a spiderweb linking multiple offices across the region. Commanders reviewing the evidence were stunned by the scope. This was not the corruption of one office, but a network of offices bound together by loyalty, trust, and fear. What made the situation even more unsettling was that some employees insisted they knew nothing. They believed they were handling classified national security matters. Others refused to talk. A few tried to flee booking flights or heading for borders before their names surfaced in the system. None got far. The most disturbing discovery came from encrypted group chats found on seized phones. No real names, only initials and coded nicknames. But the conversations were crystal clear. They discussed drop points, time windows, port movements, and inspection statuses. They celebrated when shipments cleared customs and warned each other when patrols were near. These were not reckless criminals. They were professionals operating with efficiency and confidence. In one message, someone asked why they risked so much. The reply was instant. Reed takes care of us. No one touches us. We're under his wing. It was loyalty not to the country but to the man who protected them. Photographs from past events added another chilling layer. At least 8 of the arrested had stood beside Reed at official ceremonies over the years. They appeared in public dressed formally, smiling for the cameras. They looked like honorable citizens serving their country. In reality, they were safeguarding illegal cargo-altering patrol schedules and ensuring certain containers were never opened. For a long time, they were invisible. Investigators finally realized the truly horrifying truth: Jackson Reed had not infiltrated the government from the outside. He had grown within it. The system trusted him, promoted him, and handed him power. He used that power to build corridors no one noticed until the case of Sophia Hayes forced the questions. Now dozens were in custody. Trucks were impounded. Documents scanned page by page, yet every map on the wall still held areas not fully understood. Several markers were circled in red with one word beneath pending. The network had not collapsed. It was only wounded. Someone else was still out there, still moving pieces, still watching from behind the curtain. News of Reed's capture spread like wildfire through Washington. At first, it was only whispers in hallways. Then it became headlines on every screen. A senior government official entrusted with naval secrets and national defense taken into custody after a midnight chase at sea. The shock was immediate. For many inside government circles, it felt personal. Reed was not a distant figure. People had worked with him, saluted him, shared coffee with him, discussed national security in the same conference rooms. Now every memory of those conversations felt tainted. What alarmed officials most was not the prohibited goods or the money. It was the sheer scale of influence he had wielded. Positions of power are designed to resist corruption, yet in this case, power itself became the vehicle for crime. Reed's fingerprints were not just on documents or bank transfers. They were on decisions, assignments, and policies. He shaped ship movements, patrol schedules, and container inspections. Every choice he made looked like leadership. In reality, many of those choices allowed criminal enterprises to move more freely. As federal agencies dismantled the network, the consequences rolled out in waves. Dozens were arrested not only at ports but inside offices and agencies. Some were marched from their desk in handcuffs while stunned colleagues watched. Others turned themselves in, hoping cooperation would lighten their sentences. Departments that had never imagined ties to organized crime suddenly found their own paperwork under scrutiny. Trust inside institutions crumbled. Managers questioned loyalties misplaced. The shock rippled upward and outward. Public reaction was equally fierce. For years, Reed had appeared as a symbol of strength, the embodiment of military discipline and national honor. Now communities felt betrayed. The revelation that a respected official had secretly worked with dangerous criminals sparked anger, confusion, and fear. Town hall meetings overflowed with frustrated residents demanding answers. Veterans who had once served under Reed expressed rage and disbelief. Families of missing persons came forward with old suspicions, begging investigators to reopen cases. The scandal became more than a single crime. It became the question of how someone like this could rise so high without ever being stopped. Inside the command center, the work never slowed. Every seized document was scanned. Every phone was decrypted. Every shipping route was traced backward and forward. What investigators found was a system so complex and meticulously organized that it could not have existed without years of quiet development. Some aspects remained murky. Others were painfully clear. There were records of port delays that perfectly matched shipment arrivals, customs forms that mirrored organizational transport schedules, and internal emails that suddenly made chilling sense in context. The truth was, the network had been hiding in plain sight. It operated in the shadows of routine work, using government structure to shield criminal activity. Yet even as officials worked through the evidence, another realization emerged. Capturing Reed had removed the visible leader, but the machine did not stop instantly. Some routes went silent, others became harder to track, as if someone had started closing doors before agents arrived. Several names on the investigative board remained circled, not crossed out. Those individuals had not been found. Some might be accomplices, others might be victims of the system. The unanswered questions created tension that spread through the room. It was impossible to know how many acted willingly, how many were deceived, or how many simply chose not to ask. What was painfully clear was the damage. Trust in internal structures had been shattered. Departments were forced to audit their own personnel. Policies were rewritten. Access privileges suspended. The idea that every worker wearing a badge was safe to rely on no longer felt certain. In the weeks following the arrests, reports from smaller offices described attempted data deletions, sudden resignations, and unreturned access cards. Some individuals vanished quietly, leaving homes with lights still on and mail piling up at the door. Reed sat behind bars awaiting charges, but the consequences of his actions would echo far beyond any courtroom. The criminal network had not merely used the government, it had grown inside it. And though one man had fallen, investigators knew systems like this do not collapse overnight. The maps on the wall remained covered with pins and notes. The story of Jackson Reed teaches us a profound lesson: never blindly trust symbols of authority. Even a high-ranking official with an honorable appearance can hide dark secrets, from corruption to grave crimes. Viewers must realize that silence and indifference can nurture criminal networks right inside government walls. Stay vigilant, question anything unusual, and demand transparent oversight. Only when every individual takes action can society prevent tragedies like Sophia Hayes' death and build a fairer, safer system for all. So we have uncovered the dark truth behind Jackson Reed, the man who once held naval power, now a symbol of corruption and betrayal. From the tragic death of Sophia Hayes to the sprawling prohibited goods network, this story reminds us that evil can hide right in the heart of government. Justice ultimately triumphed, but has the system truly changed? What do you think about this scandal? Do you believe corruption still lingers somewhere? Leave a comment below, share your thoughts, like and subscribe to follow more shocking stories. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.